Chris Sharma just sent only his second 15C, his 9B+, and what lesson can the rest of us learn from the fact that this 42-year-old, a full decade after La Dura Dura, just sent 15C?
Oh man, I think there's actually a whole number of lessons to be learned here as such. I think when I first saw that piece of news from Chris, I thought, isn't that brilliant that through all these years, he's maintained such a consistent amount of motivation and just putting in the time on projects on rock. That was the bit that stood out to me. It wasn't thinking, oh, wow, the grade, or, oh, look at the line, that's so hard, or anything like that. You could just tell that he's stayed in his lane, in his zone of, mastery, expertise, and has consistently done that for decades now. And what he's done there is a reflection of all that work that's gone in. And this is, tip of the iceberg, really, of that stuff done. And I think what people should really take away from this experience is that the reason why Chris has been able to do that at 42 is that it's underpinned by decades of experience in that exact same thing, putting up really hard first ascents on the thing that he absolutely loves, in a location that he loves, on a rock type that he's performed on thousands and thousands of times before. And that's why he's done it. Where I would be very surprised and very interested would be if we were reading a piece of news and he just established a brand new big wall down in Patagonia. Then I'd be going, that's kind of surprising. But right now, this is just an entirely relatable and realistic tip of the iceberg of all the work that's gone in. So if you've got a everyday weekend warrior out there who's climbed, for like the last 20 years, and they are still want to climb it right to their limit and do something which is what they did really hard 10 years ago, stay in your lane of expertise and experience if you want to do that tip of the iceberg stuff, because it needs all the underpinning experience and history underneath it. Don't suddenly jump out of your lane. You're gonna have a hard time.
All right, y'all, just a quick 30-second shout out here for today's sponsor, which is the Crimped app. And I'm telling you, I love Crimped. Long before there was a YouTube channel, I was using Crimped to program my training because it takes the guesswork out of things. We're too busy to worry about this stuff. Open up Crimped. You can either load in a program like a sport plan or a boulder plan, or you can choose from the hundreds of exercises and protocols that they have in there to figure out your week. And at the end of each day and at the end of each week, you get to check them off. You know what's happening. You know what's coming. It will level up your training. I love it so much. Check it out. Hit that link. You can download it for free. All right, let's get back to the interview. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think, clearly his lane is putting up routes like that, or deep water solo routes that are at the absolute cutting edge. That's his sweet spot. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him establishing a 30 pitch big wall in Patagonia, although that'd be sick. But at the same time, at 42, certainly he's not as objectively strong as he was 10 years ago for La Dura Dura, I would think, at 32, or maybe 10 years prior for, I'm not sure when biography, Realization was put up, the first, consensus 15A. Or maybe I'm making an assumption. Can one stay as strong objectively in their early 40s as they were in their younger years? Or is there something else that we weekend warriors can focus on? And this is a very selfish question because I'm about the same age as Chris and you. And, but even if you're not in your 40s, even if you're in your 20s right now and you're watching, what is it that we can be doing to try to channel some of what Sharma somehow tapped into to be able to perform within his lane, sure, but also it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of easy movement on that sleeping line. It was like a V10 to a V11 to a V11 to a V10 to a V12 or something like that is how he explained it, which is such a weird way to break down sport routes. But still, you can tell that it's so really hard climbing. What do you recommend to those of us who are in our 40s? Is there anything within our training that you think Chris has tapped into that we should be focusing on, whether we're that age now or we're staring it in the face at some point in time?
Well, a totally critical thing is firstly for your aging climbing population, and that's a very, very broad window. But I'm going to say late 30s and onwards is maintenance of muscle mass. This is the kind of critical item of what you want to do. And I say that with a specific nod to the fact that you want to maintain muscle mass in the climbing specific muscle groups. It's not entirely beneficial to maintain muscle mass in somewhere which doesn't require that muscle mass. And then secondly is to maintain the level of strength that you have in all of the climbing muscle groups that you've developed, hopefully through your teenage years, 20s, early 30s, because that's the time when it was easiest to develop strength. And you've got to remember that strength has a whole number of different facets in it, all the way through from the size of the muscle, the levels of recruitment, the muscle tendon unit density, intramuscular coordination. There's like a whole number of different elements that go to that. And some of these are still very trainable and progressible even through your 40s and into your 50s. So it's like a recipe of different items that you can take on this strength spectrum, and you can still work some of them. Things like hypertrophy element and gaining muscle size, yes, that does increasingly get much, much harder as we age. And that is determined by some of the kind of the mechanisms, the biochemistry that occurs within the body. But we still have the ability to most definitely maintain, focus on that all the way through our aging years. And then secondly is to look at the other aspects of our performance, which are possible to make significant improvements on, like for example, power endurance. You can make improvements in flexibility all the way through your latter years. You can make massive improvements with strategy, tactics, technique, mindset, all those things. And if you are a climber who's going through your late 30s, 40s, 50s, if you're able to just maintain that level of base strength that you already have, but move forward 1% on all those other factors every single year, you're in such a good position after 10 years of it. But the critical item is that most people find it really hard to stay motivated for that and really go after those things every year, because it's not easy to do. But it's very, very productive approach to take within climbing, and it doesn't sound particularly sexy or cool, but chipping away 1% a year at 5 or 6 different parts of your performance is very, very beneficial.
Yeah, well, what's super motivating is seeing people in their 40s pushing the absolute upper end of what can be done in the sport. So to see Chris do 15C means that it's not out of the realm for me to do 13C in a few seasons, to keep that motivation and keep that stoke. But also, I think some really practical tips there that I appreciate, which is just keeping like that muscle mass, working on probably, off season, like hypertrophy and this kind of thing to if not maybe make gains, essentially prevent declines.
Yeah. It's really, you will have a natural loss of strength that will occur over the years if you don't do that work to maintain. So making sure that you're really on it and really consistently all the way through those years is really critical. And the great thing is, it's not hard to do. There's proven methodology for doing this in terms of training. And the best thing is there are also aspects within strength that you can make improvements on. It just may not be as easy on all aspects of that strength spectrum. So yeah, number one thing, strength as you age.